I need to tell you about the night that changed everything. My name is Madison Torres. I'm 22 years old, and 2 weeks ago I watched my entire family implode at my graduation party. But here's the thing. I'm the one who detonated the bomb. Let me take you back to where it started, to the moment that made me realize I'd been invisible my whole life. Picture this. A beautiful restaurant, the Sterling, with crystal chandeliers and waiters in white gloves. 50 people dressed in their finest, champagne glasses catching the light. My graduation party, or at least that's what the invitation said. I stood near the back wall, smoothing down my navy dress for the 100th time, watching my father work the room like he was campaigning for office. Richard Torres, senior partner at Torres & Associates, looked every bit the successful attorney in his tailored suit. He moved from group to group, shaking hands, laughing at jokes, completely in his element. My mother, Patricia, stood beside him like she always did, elegant in pearls and a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Together, they looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine spread about successful legal families. Then there was Olivia. My 19-year-old sister practically glowed in a red dress that made her look older, sophisticated. She'd positioned herself near the center of the room where everyone could see her, where she could hold court with my father's colleagues and their wives, who kept telling her how brilliant she must be. I recognized maybe 10 people in that room. The rest were strangers, wearing expensive watches and discussing cases I knew nothing about. My nursing school friends weren't there. Professor Martinez, who'd spent countless hours mentoring me, who'd written me the recommendation letter that changed my life, she wasn't there. My study group, the people who'd actually been with me through 4 years of hell, none of them had made the guest list. I'd tried to add them. 2 weeks before the party, I'd called my mother. "Madison, this isn't that kind of event," she'd said, her voice pleasant but firm. "Your father's partners are attending. We need to maintain a certain atmosphere." "You mean my friends aren't good enough?" I'd replied. The pause on the other end told me everything. "I mean, they wouldn't feel comfortable. It's for the best, sweetheart." So there I stood at my own graduation party, surrounded by people who couldn't pick me out of a lineup, watching my father charm everyone in the room except me. He hadn't looked at me once since I'd arrived. Not when I walked in, not when I tried to catch his eye, not even a glance. A waiter passed with champagne. I took a glass I didn't want, just to have something to hold on to. "Madison!" My Aunt Carol appeared at my elbow, one of the few relatives I actually knew. "Congratulations on nursing school. Your grandmother told me you graduated top of your class." "Thank you," I managed to smile. "Yeah, it was—" "Carol." My father's voice boomed across the room. "Come meet Judge Harrison. He's interested in discussing the Morrison case." Aunt Carol gave me an apologetic look and disappeared into the crowd. Of course. Even the people who wanted to talk to me got pulled away. I moved toward the windows, trying to make myself even smaller. Through the glass, I could see the city lights, and for a moment I imagined just walking out, getting in my car, driving away from all of this. But I didn't. I stayed because some pathetic part of me still hoped this night would turn into what it was supposed to be. Then I saw my father step onto the small platform at the front of the room. My stomach tightened. This was it, the toast, the moment where he'd acknowledge my graduation, where 4 years of silence and disappointment might finally crack open into something that looked like pride. "Everyone, if I could have your attention." His voice carried easily, the same commanding tone he used in courtrooms. The room quieted instantly. My mother moved to stand beside him, her hand on his arm. Olivia joined them too, and I felt my first spike of real confusion. Why was Olivia up there? "Thank you all for coming tonight," my father continued, his smile wide and genuine in a way I rarely saw directed at me. "Patricia and I are so grateful to have you here to celebrate with our family." Our family, not me. The family. As many of you know, Madison graduated from nursing school this spring. He gestured vaguely in my direction. A few people glanced over. Most kept their eyes on him. We're pleased with her accomplishment." Pleased, not proud, pleased, like I'd done something mildly satisfactory. "But tonight, His voice lifted, energized now. "Tonight we also have another announcement to make, one that fills me with genuine pride." My hands went numb. The champagne glass felt slippery in my grip. My father turned to look at Olivia, and his entire face transformed. His eyes lit up. His smile became real, unguarded. He looked at her the way I'd spent 22 years hoping he'd look at me. "My daughter Olivia," he said, and his voice actually shook with emotion, "has been accepted to Harvard Law School." The room erupted in applause. People surged forward to congratulate her. My mother beamed, tears in her eyes. My father pulled Olivia into a hug that looked nothing like the stiff, obligatory embraces he'd given me over the years. But he wasn't done. He raised his champagne glass, and the room quieted again, everyone eager to hear what else Richard Torres had to say about his brilliant daughter. My father kept his champagne glass raised high, his eyes locked on Olivia with an intensity that made my chest ache. I'd never seen him look at anyone like that, certainly not me. The room held its breath, waiting for his next words. "When I started my career 30 years ago," he began, his voice rich with emotion, "I had a dream. Not just to build a successful practice, but to create a legacy. To establish the Torres name as synonymous with legal excellence." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the crowd. Several of his partners nodded appreciatively. "My wife, Patricia, comes from 3 generations of attorneys. Her grandfather founded one of the first civil rights law firms in this state. Her father argued before the Supreme Court. Her mother was the first female partner at Whitman and Associates." My mother smiled, standing straighter. This was her favorite story, the one she'd told me 100 times growing up, always with the unspoken message that I was failing to live up to it. "When our daughters were born," my father continued, "I imagined them carrying on this tradition. I pictured them in courtrooms, making arguments, changing lives through the power of law." My throat tightened. I knew what was coming. I could feel it building like a wave about to crash. "Olivia has chosen to honor that legacy." His voice swelled with pride. "Harvard Law School. Do you understand what that means? The finest legal education in the world. The same institution that produced Supreme Court justices, senators, the leaders who shape our nation." More applause. Someone shouted, "Hear, hear!" Olivia blushed prettily, playing modest, but I could see the satisfaction in her eyes. She was eating this up. My father turned then, and for the first time all evening, he looked directly at me. Not at my face, not into my eyes, but at me as a presence in the room, an object to be acknowledged. "Madison chose a different path," he said simply. No elaboration, no explanation. Just those 5 words that somehow contained all his disappointment, all his judgment, all the years of me not being enough. Several people glanced my way. I saw pity in some faces, confusion in others. A few looked away quickly, embarrassed for me. "But tonight," my father's voice lifted again as he turned back to Olivia, "tonight we celebrate the daughter who will carry the Torres name into the future with the dignity and prestige it deserves." The room blurred. I blinked hard, refusing to let tears fall. Not here. Not in front of these people. My father raised his glass higher. "To Olivia Torres, future Harvard Law graduate, and the child who has truly made us proud." Truly made us proud. The word truly hung in the air like a knife. Not just proud, truly proud. As if any pride they might have felt for me was false, obligatory, not real. Everyone raised their glasses. "To Olivia!" they chorused. I didn't raise mine. My hand wouldn't move. I stood there frozen, watching my sister accept congratulations, watching my mother dab at her eyes with a tissue, watching my father shake hands with his partners, who clapped him on the back and told him how fortunate he was. No one looked at me. Not one person. The party swirled on around me. Waiters brought out a cake, a massive thing with "Congratulations, Olivia," written in elegant script. My name appeared below in smaller letters, almost an afterthought. The knife went to Olivia first for the ceremonial cut. I set my champagne glass down on the nearby table. My hands were shaking so badly I was afraid I'd drop it. I needed air. I needed to get out of this room before I did something I couldn't take back, like scream or cry or throw something. I moved toward the exit, weaving through clusters of guests who didn't notice me passing. Why would they? I was just the forgettable daughter, the one who'd disappointed everyone by choosing to help people instead of argue for them. Madison, wait. I turned to find Aunt Carol again, her face troubled. Sweetheart, are you okay? I'm fine, I lied. Just need some air. That toast was... She hesitated, clearly trying to find diplomatic words. Your father shouldn't have... It's fine, I cut her off. I couldn't hear sympathy right now. Sympathy would break me. Really, I just need a minute. I pushed through the door into the hallway, the noise of the party muffled behind me. I leaned against the wall, breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. My father had stood in front of 50 people and essentially announced that I was a disappointment, that Olivia was the real daughter, the one worth celebrating, that my 4 years of brutal studying, my perfect grades, my acceptance into one of the most competitive nursing programs in the state, all of it meant nothing because I hadn't chosen law. My phone buzzed in my clutch. I pulled it out with trembling hands. A text from my grandmother, Eleanor. I'm in the parking lot, couldn't go in. Your father didn't invite me, but I'm here if you need me. Of course he hadn't invited her. Eleanor Mitchell had spent 40 years as a nurse, rising to become director of nursing at 3 different hospitals, revolutionizing patient care protocols, training hundreds of nurses who went on to save countless lives. But to my father, she was just someone who'd served doctors, someone beneath the Torres family dignity. Another text came through. I have something to tell you, something that might help. Come outside when you're ready. I looked back toward the party. Through the glass doors, I could see Olivia surrounded by admirers, my mother glowing beside her, my father holding court with his partners. None of them had noticed I'd left. None of them cared. I walked toward the exit, my heels clicking on marble floors. Behind me, I heard someone start a new toast. More laughter. More celebration of the daughter who mattered. I pushed through the doors into the night air, and I didn't look back. The parking lot was half empty, lit by cold fluorescent lights that made everything look harsh and uninviting. I spotted my grandmother's car immediately, the old silver Honda she'd been driving for 15 years because it still runs perfectly fine, why would I replace it? She was leaning against the driver's side door, wrapped in a cardigan despite the warm evening. When she saw me, her face crumpled with concern. "Oh, sweetheart," she said softly. That was all it took. The tears I'd been holding back spilled over. I walked into her arms and let myself cry, really cry, for the first time in years. She held me tight, one hand stroking my hair like she'd done when I was little, murmuring comforting words that I couldn't quite make out. "He said it in front of everyone," I choked out between sobs. "He said Olivia was the one who truly made him proud, like I'm nothing, like everything I've done doesn't matter." "I know, baby. I know. Why does he hate me so much? What did I do wrong?" Eleanor pulled back, holding me at arm's length so she could look into my eyes. "You didn't do anything wrong. You did something brave. You chose your own path instead of the one he laid out for you, and he can't forgive you for it." "I just wanted to help people," I whispered. "And you will. You already have." She reached into her car and pulled out a tissue, handing it to me. "Madison, there's something I need to tell you, something that might change how you see tonight." I wiped my eyes, trying to compose myself. "What is it?" "Do you remember Dr. Webb from Presbyterian Memorial Hospital, the director of recruitment?" I nodded. "You said you served on a board with him." "I did. For 15 years we worked together on the Community Health Foundation. He's seen my work, knows my standards, trusts my judgment." She paused. 2 months ago, he called me, said they were looking for exceptional candidates for their emergency department, the most competitive nursing position in the state. My heart started beating faster. And I told him about you, everything, your grades, your clinical rotations, your dedication, the way you stayed up all night studying because you wanted to be the best possible nurse for your future patients, the commendations from your professors, the way you volunteered at the free clinic even when you were drowning in coursework. "Grandma." He was impressed, very impressed. He asked for your contact information. She smiled. "Madison, They want to offer you the position, $78,000 starting salary, full benefits, the chance to work with the best emergency medicine team in 3 states. I stared at her, unable to process the words. What? They sent you an email 3 days ago. Did you check it? I fumbled for my phone, my hands still shaking. I'd been so consumed with dreading this party that I hadn't checked my email in days. I scrolled through, and there it was. Formal offer of employment, Presbyterian Memorial Hospital. My vision blurred again, but this time not from sadness. I opened the email and read it once, twice, 3 times to make sure it was real. They want to present it formally, I whispered, reading the paragraph that made my pulse race. At a significant event in my life. Eleanor's smile widened. I may have mentioned to Dr. Webb that you had a graduation celebration coming up. I looked up at her sharply. What exactly did you tell him? That my brilliant granddaughter was having a party to celebrate her nursing degree, that it would be attended by many prominent people in the community, that it would be the perfect opportunity to make a statement about the value of nursing excellence. She paused. He seemed very interested in the idea. My mind was spinning. Presbyterian Memorial wanting to publicly offer me a position at my graduation party, the same party where my father had just announced that Olivia was the only daughter worth being proud of, the same party where he'd essentially told 50 people that my career choice was beneath the Torres family. When? I asked. When would they do it? Dr. Webb is inside right now, Eleanor said quietly. He came as my guest. I didn't tell you because I wanted you to focus on your graduation, not worry about impressing anyone. But he's been watching you all evening, saw everything that just happened. He saw the toast? Every word. Her expression hardened, and he was appalled. He told me that any family who can't see the value of nursing doesn't deserve a nurse like you. I turned to look back at the building, at the warm light spilling from the windows, at the silhouettes of people still celebrating inside. Somewhere in that room was Dr. Webb, the man who could change my life, who'd just witnessed my father's public humiliation of me. What do I do? I asked. Eleanor took my hands. That's entirely up to you, sweetheart. You can go back in there, endure the rest of the evening, and accept Dr. Webb's offer privately later. Or, she paused, her eyes gleaming with something that looked like mischief, you can let him make his announcement. Let everyone in that room see exactly what you've accomplished. Let your father and mother and sister see that the daughter they dismissed just received an offer that most nurses would kill for. That would humiliate them, I said slowly. Would it? Or would it simply tell the truth? Eleanor squeezed my hands. Madison, you've spent 4 years being small, being quiet, letting them erase you. You've apologized for your choices, for your passion, for wanting to help people. Maybe it's time to stop apologizing. I thought about my father's face when he looked at Olivia, the pride, the genuine emotion, the way he'd never, not once in 22 years, looked at me like that. I thought about the cake with Olivia's name in big letters and mine as an afterthought. I thought about the guest list full of strangers and empty of anyone who actually cared about me. I thought about that word, truly. The child who has truly made us proud. I looked down at my phone, at the email that represented everything I'd worked for. $78,000. Presbyterian Memorial's emergency department, a position that hundreds of graduates competed for every single year. And they wanted me. Is Dr. Webb expecting to make the announcement tonight? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Eleanor nodded. He's prepared to, if you're comfortable with it. But Madison, this is your choice, no one else's. Not mine, not his, and certainly not your father's. I glanced back at the building one more time. Through the windows, I could see the party continuing without me. My absence hadn't even created a ripple. They were probably cutting the cake now, Olivia's name front and center. Something hardened inside me, a resolve I didn't know I possessed. I want to do it, I said. I want him to make the announcement. Eleanor studied my face carefully. Are you sure? Once this happens, there's no taking it back. Your father will see it as a challenge. Your mother will call it inappropriate. Olivia will feel upstaged. Good. The word came out sharper than I intended. Let them feel what I felt for 4 years. Let them see what they've been ignoring." My grandmother smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "All right then. Let me go find Dr. Webb. Take a few minutes, fix your makeup, and come back inside when you're ready. We'll wait for the right moment." She squeezed my shoulder and walked toward the building, her posture straight and purposeful. I watched her go, this 70-year-old woman who'd fought her own battles in a medical system that had tried to diminish her, who'd never let anyone make her feel less than she was. I pulled out my compact and fixed my makeup as best I could. My eyes were still red, but there was nothing I could do about that. Maybe it was better this way. Let them see what their words had done. When I walked back into the party, the energy had shifted. People were eating cake, conversations flowing more freely now that the formal toasts were done. I scanned the room and spotted my grandmother near the bar, talking to a distinguished-looking man in his 60s with silver hair and kind eyes. Dr. Webb, I presumed. He glanced my way and gave a small nod. Eleanor said something to him, and he nodded again, more firmly this time. I moved through the crowd, invisible as always. My father was holding court with Judge Harrison and 2 other partners, gesticulating as he told some story that had them all laughing. My mother stood with a group of lawyers' wives, discussing something that required serious expressions and knowing nods. Olivia was taking selfies with her sorority friends, her smile brilliant. None of them looked at me. I found a quiet corner and waited, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. What was I doing? This was crazy. This was going to blow up my entire family dynamic. My father would never forgive me for this. But then again, what was there to forgive me for? Accepting a prestigious job offer? Being recognized for my achievements? Why should that require forgiveness? I saw Dr. Webb excuse himself from my grandmother and make his way toward the platform where my father had given his toast. He moved with quiet authority, the kind that came from years of commanding respect in high-pressure situations. He stepped onto the platform and tapped a spoon against a glass. The clear, ringing sound cut through the conversation. "Excuse me, everyone. May I have your attention for just a moment?" The room quieted slowly. People turned toward him, curious. I saw my father's face register confusion, then annoyance. He didn't like being interrupted, especially not at his own event. "I apologize for the intrusion," Dr. Webb continued, his voice warm but professional. "My name is Dr. Richard Webb. I'm the Director of Recruitment at Presbyterian Memorial Hospital." A few people nodded in recognition. Presbyterian Memorial had a reputation. Everyone in this room would know the name. My father's eyes narrowed. He glanced at my mother, who shrugged slightly, equally confused. "I'm here tonight as a guest of Eleanor Mitchell," Dr. Webb gestured toward my grandmother, who stood tall and proud. "And I have some news that I believe is worth sharing with all of you." My heart was racing now. This was it. This was really happening. As many of you know, this evening is meant to celebrate Madison Torres' graduation from nursing school. He paused, letting that sink in. Several people glanced around, seeming to remember for the first time why they were actually here. What you may not know is that Madison graduated summa cum laude, top of her entire class. I saw my father's jaw tighten. He hadn't known that. I'd tried to tell him when the rankings came out, but he'd cut me off mid-sentence to take a call about a case. "She received the highest clinical evaluation scores in the program's 20-year history," Dr. Webb continued. "Her professors describe her as the most dedicated, skilled, and compassionate student they've ever taught. During her pediatric rotation, she identified a rare heart condition in an infant that 3 doctors had missed. Her interventions saved that child's life." The room was completely silent now. I could feel eyes turning toward me, seeing me perhaps for the first time all evening. Presbyterian Memorial Hospital conducts a nationwide search each year for the best and brightest nursing graduates to join our emergency department. We receive over 500 applications. We interview perhaps 20 candidates. We typically offer positions to 2, maybe 3 if we're fortunate. He paused for effect. This year, we are honored and privileged to offer one of those positions to Madison Torres. The silence in the room was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop on the marble floor. Every single person was staring at Dr. Webb, processing his words, and then slowly, one by one, their eyes shifted to me. I stood frozen in my corner, my hands clasped in front of me, barely breathing. Dr. Webb wasn't finished. The starting salary for this position is $78,000 annually, with full benefits and a signing bonus. For context, this is one of the highest-paid entry-level nursing positions in the entire state. I saw my father's face go pale. $78,000. I knew exactly what he was thinking because I'd done the math myself. That was more than first-year associates at his firm made. More than Olivia would make even after graduating from Harvard Law, at least for her first few years. But more importantly than the compensation, Dr. Webb continued, his voice growing warmer. This position represents an opportunity to work alongside the finest emergency medicine team in 3 states. Madison will be treating trauma patients, saving lives, making split-second decisions that mean the difference between life and death. She will be exactly where she belongs, doing exactly what she was born to do. He turned to look directly at me, his smile genuine. "Madison, would you please join me up here?" My legs felt like water, but I forced myself to move. The crowd parted as I walked toward the platform, and I could feel their stares like physical touches. Confusion, surprise, reassessment. These people who hadn't given me a second glance all evening were suddenly seeing me as something other than the disappointing daughter. I climbed the steps to the platform, my heels clicking loudly in the quiet room. Dr. Webb extended his hand and I shook it, his grip firm and reassuring. "Congratulations, Madison," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Presbyterian Memorial is incredibly fortunate to have you." "Thank you," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "This is your formal offer letter. We hope you'll accept, though we understand you may need time to consider." I took the envelope with trembling hands. It was heavy, expensive paper, embossed with the Presbyterian Memorial logo. Then something unexpected happened. Someone started clapping. I looked out and saw it was Aunt Carol, her eyes shining with what looked like tears. Then someone else joined in, and another, and suddenly the entire room was applauding, all except 3 people. My father stood rigid, his face a mask of controlled fury. My mother's hand was pressed to her chest, her expression shocked, and Olivia, my brilliant sister who was supposed to be the star of this evening, looked like she'd been slapped. The applause continued for what felt like forever but was probably only 30 seconds. When it died down, Dr. Webb spoke again. "I'd also like to acknowledge Eleanor Mitchell, whose 40 years of nursing excellence set the standard that Madison is now following." He gestured to my grandmother. Eleanor revolutionized patient care protocols, trained hundreds of nurses, and saved countless lives. She is a legend in our field, and we are honored to have her granddaughter joining our team. More applause. My grandmother nodded graciously, but I could see the moisture in her eyes. Dr. Webb stepped back, yielding the platform to me. I stood there, looking out at 50 faces, most of them strangers, all of them watching me with new interest. I should say something. Everyone expected me to say something. I opened my mouth, not entirely sure what would come out. "Thank you, Dr. Webb," I began, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "I'm honored to accept this position at Presbyterian Memorial." Another small wave of applause. I looked directly at my father then. His eyes met mine, and I saw something I'd never seen before: uncertainty. For the first time in my life, Richard Torres didn't know how to handle me. "When I chose nursing 4 years ago," I continued, "I was told I was making a mistake, that I was throwing away my potential, that I was choosing to be a servant instead of a leader." I saw several people shift uncomfortably. My mother's face flushed. But I learned something during those 4 years. I learned that holding someone's hand while they take their last breath is not servitude. I learned that saving a child's life because you notice something others missed is not a waste of potential. I learned that being there in people's darkest moments, bringing them comfort and care and hope, is not something to be ashamed of. My voice grew stronger. I learned that nursing is not a backup plan for people who can't do something better. It's a calling for people who want to do something that matters. The room was silent again, but this time it felt different. People were listening, really listening. So yes, I chose a different path than my family expected. I chose to help people instead of argue for them. I chose to save lives instead of win cases. I paused. And I would make the same choice 1,000 times over. I looked at Olivia then, my sister who'd always had everything handed to her, who'd never had to fight for recognition or approval. "Congratulations on Harvard, Olivia," I said, and I meant it. "I'm sure you'll do great things there. I genuinely hope you will." Then I looked back at my father. But tonight isn't just about Olivia's future. It's about mine too, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished, even if no one else in my family is. The words hung in the air like a challenge. My father's face went from pale to red. He stepped forward, and for a moment I thought he might actually walk out. Instead, he forced a smile, the kind he used in courtrooms when a witness said something he didn't like but couldn't object to. "Of course we're proud," he said, his voice tight. "We've always been proud of both our daughters." The lie was so blatant that several people looked away in embarrassment. My father's words echoed in the silent room, and I saw several people exchange glances. They'd all heard his toast earlier. They'd all heard him say that Olivia was the child who, truly, made him proud. They knew he was lying, and he knew they knew. But Richard Torres was a skilled attorney. He recovered quickly, turning to Dr. Webb with an extended hand. "Thank you for recognizing Madison's achievements. Presbyterian Memorial is an excellent institution." Dr. Webb shook his hand, but his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Indeed. We're very selective about who we bring onto our team. Madison's qualifications are exceptional." "Of course," my father said smoothly. "Though nursing is certainly a noble profession, even if it's not quite what we'd envisioned for her future." The condescension in his voice was subtle, but it was there, dismissive, diminishing. Even now, even after everything, he couldn't help himself. Dr. Webb's expression cooled noticeably. "With all due respect, Mr. Torres, emergency department nurses often have more medical knowledge than many physicians. They make life-or-death decisions in seconds. Madison will be responsible for trauma cases that would make most people crumble. I'd hardly call that not quite anything." A few people near the front actually gasped. No one challenged Richard Torres like that, certainly not at his own events. My father's jaw clenched. "I meant no disrespect to the profession, merely that our family has certain traditions." "Traditions," my grandmother's voice cut through from where she stood near the bar, "are only valuable if they serve the people who follow them. When tradition becomes a cage, it's time to break free." She walked forward slowly, deliberately, until she stood at the base of the platform. I'd never seen her look more formidable. "Richard, do you know what I did for 40 years?" she asked. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "I saved lives. I held dying patients and gave them dignity in their final moments. I trained nurses who went on to work in every major hospital in this state. I developed protocols that reduced patient mortality rates by 17%. She paused, letting that sink in. "And you know what you said to me the first time we met? You looked at my nurse's uniform and said you hoped your wife would have a better life than me." Her smile was sharp as a blade. "You measured my worth by my job title, not by what I'd actually accomplished. And now you're doing the same thing to your daughter." My mother stepped forward, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Eleanor, this is not the time or place." "When is the time, Patricia?" Eleanor turned to her daughter. "When is it appropriate to tell your husband that he's destroying your child? That he's so obsessed with legacy and prestige that he can't see the incredible young woman right in front of him?" "Mother, please." Patricia's voice shook. "You're making a scene." "Good," Eleanor said firmly. "It's about time someone did." The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. 50 people watching my family implode in real time, and I was at the center of it. Olivia suddenly spoke up from where she'd been standing with her friends. "This is my night too, you know." Her voice was tight, almost petulant. "Madison got her big announcement. Can we please just get back to celebrating?" Something inside me snapped. "Your night?" I turned to look at her. "Olivia, this party was supposed to be for my graduation. The invitation literally said, Madison's graduation celebration. But somehow it became all about you." "That's not fair," she protested. "I didn't ask Dad to announce my Harvard acceptance." "Didn't you?" I stepped down from the platform, moving closer to her. You've been positioning yourself in the center of the room all night. You wore that red dress because you knew it would draw attention. You brought your sorority friends to an event that was supposed to be about me. You've been taking selfies and posting them with hashtags about Harvard since we got here." Her face went red. "You're just jealous." "Of what, exactly? Of being the favorite? Of never having to work for approval because it was just handed to you?" I shook my head. "I'm not jealous, Olivia. I'm tired. I'm tired of being invisible in my own family." "You're not invisible," my mother interjected, but her voice lacked conviction. "Really, Mom?" I turned to face her. "When was the last time you asked about my life? About my job interviews, my clinical rotations, my patients? When was the last time you came to visit me, or even called just to talk?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no answer because we both knew the truth. "You call Olivia 3 times a week," I continued. "You know the names of all her professors, her roommates, her sorority sisters. You flew out to visit her campus twice this semester, but you can't remember the last time you asked me how I was doing, can you?" Patricia's eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't stop. 4 years of silence was pouring out of me. "And you, Dad," I turned to my father, "you couldn't even be bothered to learn what summa cum laude means. You don't know that I was nominated for the Nightingale Award. You don't know that I've already published research on pediatric triage protocols. You don't know anything about my life because you never asked." "Madison," he started, his voice warning me to stop. "No," I said firmly. "You had your toast. You said what you wanted to say in front of everyone. You said Olivia was the child who truly made you proud. So now I get to say something too." His expression darkened. "I think you've said quite enough." "I don't care what you think." The words came out before I could stop them, and they felt like liberation. "I spent 4 years caring what you thought, 4 years trying to make you proud, 4 years hoping that maybe, just maybe, you'd look at me the way you look at Olivia." My father's face had gone completely rigid, his lawyer mask firmly in place, but I could see the anger simmering beneath it. Around us, the party guests had gone completely still, some looking away in discomfort, others watching with undisguised fascination as the Torres family drama unfolded. "Madison, that's enough," he said, his voice low and controlled in that dangerous way that used to make me back down immediately. "But not tonight, not anymore." "You want to know what the worst part is?" I continued, my voice shaking but steady. "It's not that you chose Olivia over me. It's that you made me feel like I had to earn something she got for free. Love, respect, basic acknowledgement that I exist." "We've always loved you," my mother said weakly, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. "You're being dramatic." "Am I? Then tell me, Mom, what was my thesis about?" She blinked at me, confusion crossing her face. "Your what?" "My senior thesis. The major research project I spent a year working on, the one I told you about at Thanksgiving. What was it about?" Silence. She genuinely had no idea. "Pediatric pain management protocols in underserved communities," I said quietly. "It's going to be published in the Journal of Nursing Research. 3 hospitals are already implementing my recommendations." I turned to my father. "And you, Dad? What clinical rotation did I just finish?" His jaw tightened. He didn't know either. "Emergency trauma," I answered for him. 60 hours a week for 3 months. I saw things that will haunt me forever. A 7-year-old with a gunshot wound, a mother who didn't make it after a car accident, a suicide attempt I helped talk down at 3 in the morning. And you know how many times you called to ask how I was handling it? 0. "You never told us about any of this," my mother protested. "I tried." My voice rose despite my efforts to control it. "I tried so many times, but every conversation, every phone call, somehow turned into updates about Olivia. Her classes, her social life, her plans. There was never room for me." Olivia finally spoke again, her voice small. "That's not true. You always seemed fine. You never said you were struggling." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and for the first time I saw something other than resentment. She genuinely seemed confused, maybe even hurt. "Olivia, I called home crying after my first patient died, I said softly. I was 20 years old, and I just watched a 16-year-old boy die from injuries in a motorcycle accident. I called Mom, and she talked to me for 3 minutes before saying she had to go because she was helping you pick out a dress for some sorority event. My mother's face crumpled. I don't remember that. I know you don't, because it wasn't important to you. I wasn't important to you. That's not fair, my father interjected, his voice hard. We've supported you financially. We paid for your education. You paid for 2 years, I corrected him. The first 2 years. Then you told me that if I was determined to waste my potential on nursing, I could figure out how to pay for it myself. I've been working 2 jobs and living on loans for the past 2 years. I saw several guests exchange shocked glances. This detail, apparently, had never been shared publicly. We wanted you to reconsider, my father said, but there was less conviction in his voice now. We thought if you had to work for it, you'd realize… What? That law was better? That I should give up on the only thing I've ever been passionate about because it didn't fit your vision? I shook my head. I graduated top of my class while working 40 hours a week. I'm accepting a position at one of the best hospitals in the country, and your first instinct is still to diminish it. Dr. Webb cleared his throat from where he still stood on the platform. If I may interject, the position Madison is accepting would be competitive for nurses with 5 or 10 years of experience. The fact that we're offering it to a new graduate is virtually unprecedented. We understand that, my father said tersely, clearly annoyed at the interruption. But this is a family matter. Is it? I cut him off. Because you made it very public when you gave your toast. You told everyone here that Olivia was the child who truly made you proud. You turned my graduation party into her announcement celebration. You invited 50 of your colleagues and not a single one of my friends. So don't suddenly decide this is a private family matter when it stops serving your narrative. My father's control finally cracked. You want to know the truth, Madison? Fine. Yes, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that you threw away every advantage we gave you. Your mother's family legacy, my connections, the opportunity to be part of something meaningful. Meaningful? My voice went quiet, deadly quiet. You think saving lives isn't meaningful? I think arguing cases that change policy, that affect thousands of people, that shape society is more meaningful than changing bedpans and following doctor's orders, yes. The room went absolutely silent. Even my mother gasped. Dr. Webb stepped forward again, his expression cold. Mr. Torres, I think you should know that the bedpan changers you're so dismissive of have a higher rate of catching fatal errors than most physicians. Nurses are the last line of defense between patients and death. They work longer hours, deal with more abuse, and receive a fraction of the recognition while doing work that is absolutely essential. I didn't mean… my father started. Yes, you did, I said. You meant exactly that. You've always meant it. And now everyone here knows exactly what you think of me and my choices. My father stood there, his face flushed, caught between his anger and the realization that he'd revealed too much in front of his colleagues. I could see him trying to calculate damage control, trying to figure out how to spin this, but I wasn't done yet. You know what's funny, Dad? I said, my voice eerily calm now. You talk about meaningful work, about changing lives, about legacy, but do you know what case you're most famous for? His eyes narrowed. Madison. The Brennan Corporation defense, I continued. You successfully defended a pharmaceutical company that knowingly sold contaminated medications. You got them off on a technicality. 3 people died from those medications. 17 more got seriously ill. That's not… he started, but I kept going. You did your job. You defended your client brilliantly. You won. And because of that win, Brennan Corporation paid you a huge bonus and made you partner. I paused. But those 3 people are still dead. Those 17 people still have permanent health complications, and you sleep just fine at night because you tell yourself you were just doing your job. Several of his colleagues looked uncomfortable now. This was clearly a sore subject in legal circles. Meanwhile, I continued, last month during my clinical rotation, I noticed that a 12-year-old girl's symptoms didn't match her diagnosis. The doctors thought it was appendicitis. I pushed for more tests. Turns out she had a twisted ovary, and if we'd done the appendectomy, she probably would have died or at the very least lost her fertility. I looked around the room, making eye contact with as many people as I could. That girl gets to grow up now. She gets to have children someday if she wants. She gets to live her life because I paid attention, because I cared enough to question the diagnosis, because I did my job. I turned back to my father. So you tell me which one of us is doing more meaningful work. The silence that followed was deafening. My father's face had gone from red to almost purple. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he said, his voice shaking with rage. "The legal work I do supports this family. It paid for your education, your car, your apartment." "My apartment that you've never visited," I interrupted. "My car that I bought myself after you refused to co-sign a loan because you said I should have chosen a real career that would let me afford one on my own. And my education that I've been paying for myself for 2 years because you cut me off." My mother reached for my father's arm. "Richard, maybe we should—" "No," he snapped, shaking her off. "She wants to do this here, in front of everyone? Fine. Let's be honest then." He stepped closer to me, and for a moment I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Genuine hurt beneath the anger. "Do you know what it was like for me?" he asked, his voice low. "Growing up with nothing? Watching my mother clean houses to pay rent, wearing second-hand clothes to school while kids from families like your mother's looked down on me." I opened my mouth, but he kept going. "I worked myself to the bone to get out of that life. I got a full scholarship to law school. I made law review. I clerked for a federal judge. I built something from nothing." His voice rose. "And when I married your mother, when I joined her family's tradition, I thought finally I was building a legacy that would mean something, that would last." He looked at me with something like desperation. "You were supposed to be part of that, Madison. You were smart, driven. You could have been extraordinary. You could have argued before the Supreme Court someday, made partner before 30, changed laws that affect millions of people." He shook his head. "Instead, you're going to spend your life running around a hospital taking orders. And for what? A decent salary and the satisfaction of helping one person at a time?" For a moment, just a moment, I almost felt sorry for him, because I finally understood. This wasn't really about me at all. It was about him, about his need to prove he'd made it, to create a dynasty that would erase the poor kid he used to be. But understanding didn't equal forgiveness. "You're right," I said quietly. "I will help one person at a time, and you know what? That's enough for me. It's more than enough." I looked at my mother, who was crying openly now, black mascara running down her cheeks. "I spent my whole life trying to be what you wanted," I told them both, "trying to fit into this mold you created. But I'm done. I'm done apologizing for choosing compassion over prestige. I'm done feeling guilty for wanting to help people instead of bill them. I'm done being invisible in my own family." Olivia suddenly stepped forward, her face pale. "Madison, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know they treated you like this." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw that she might actually be telling the truth. She'd been so wrapped up in being the golden child that she'd never noticed the shadow she was casting. "Maybe you didn't," I said softly, "but you also never asked. You never wondered why I stopped coming home for holidays. You never questioned why I was working 2 jobs. You just enjoyed being the favorite and never thought about what that meant for me." She flinched like I'd hit her. I turned to Dr. Webb, who had watched this entire scene unfold with an unreadable expression. "Dr. Webb, I accept your offer. When do I start?" He smiled, genuine warmth returning to his face. "We'd like you to begin orientation in 2 weeks if that works for you." "It works perfectly." Dr. Webb nodded approvingly. "Excellent. I'll have my assistant send over all the onboarding paperwork tomorrow." He glanced around the room, his expression pointed. "I think we should probably let this family have some privacy now. Madison, congratulations again. We're truly fortunate to have you." He stepped down from the platform and made his way toward the exit, but not before stopping to shake my grandmother's hand warmly. "Eleanor, always a pleasure. You raised an exceptional granddaughter." I had good material to work with, she replied, her eyes still on me. As Dr. Webb left, a ripple effect began. One by one, the guests started making their excuses. They sensed the evening was over, that they'd witnessed something they probably shouldn't have, and the polite thing to do was leave the Torres family to sort out their mess in private. "We should be going," Judge Harrison said to my father, his handshake brief and awkward. "Congratulations on both your daughter's achievements, Richard." The emphasis on both wasn't lost on anyone. Within 15 minutes, the room had mostly cleared. The waiters were quietly removing plates and glasses, pretending not to have witnessed the family implosion. Only a few people remained: my parents, Olivia, my grandmother, Aunt Carol, and a couple of my father's partners who seemed uncertain whether they should stay or go. The silence was crushing. My mother finally broke it, her voice small and shaky. "Madison, I think we should talk about this at home, privately." "No," I said simply. "What do you mean, no?" My father's voice was still tight with anger. "I mean, I'm not going to your house to have another conversation where you tell me I'm being dramatic, where you convince yourselves that this is all a misunderstanding, where everything gets swept under the rug so we can pretend to be a happy family." "We are a family," my mother insisted. "Are we?" I looked at each of them in turn. When was the last time we acted like one? When was the last time we had dinner together where the conversation wasn't about Olivia's achievements or Dad's cases? When was the last time anyone asked about my life and actually listened to the answer? Olivia shifted uncomfortably. "Madison, I know things haven't been fair, but..." "But what? But we should just move past it? Pretend tonight didn't happen?" I shook my head. "I'm not doing that anymore." My father ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I'd seen 1,000 times. "So what do you want from us, Madison? An apology? Fine. I apologize for the toast. I apologize if my words hurt you. Are we done now?" "If your words hurt me?" I almost laughed. "Dad, you stood in front of 50 people and said Olivia was the child who truly made you proud. There's no if about it." "I was caught up in the moment," he said defensively. "Olivia's Harvard acceptance is a big deal. I got carried away." "You got carried away for 4 years?" I shot back. "Every missed phone call, every forgotten achievement, every time you changed the subject when I tried to talk about nursing school, you were just carried away all those times too." He had no answer for that. My mother tried a different approach, her voice pleading. "Madison, sweetheart, we love you. We've always loved you. We had certain expectations, certain hopes for your future. Can't you understand that?" "I can understand it," I said, "but I can't accept it anymore. Your love shouldn't come with conditions. It shouldn't depend on me choosing the career you wanted or living the life you envisioned." "All parents have hopes for their children," my father argued. "Hopes, yes, but you turned your hopes into requirements, and when I didn't meet them, you acted like I'd failed you personally." I felt tears threatening again, but pushed them back. "Do you know what that does to a person? To spend your whole life feeling like a disappointment to the two people who are supposed to love you unconditionally?" Olivia spoke up again, her voice small. "What about me? How do you think I feel right now? You basically told everyone here that being the favorite ruined our relationship." I turned to her, and for the first time all evening, I felt my anger soften slightly. "Liv, I don't hate you. I never have. But you've been so comfortable being the golden child that you never noticed, or never cared, what it cost me." "That's not fair," she protested. "I can't help that Mom and Dad are proud of me." "No, but you could have noticed that they weren't proud of me. You could have said something when Dad cut me off financially. You could have asked why I stopped coming home for holidays. You could have wondered why I was always working instead of hanging out with friends." I paused. "You could have been a sister instead of just a competitor." Her face crumpled, and I realized she was genuinely crying now, not the pretty, delicate tears my mother cried, but ugly, gasping sobs. "I didn't know," she choked out. "I swear, Madison, I didn't know it was this bad. I thought you were just, I don't know, independent. I thought you liked being on your own." "I was alone, Liv. There's a difference." My grandmother, who had been silent throughout this exchange, finally stepped forward. "I think Madison has said what she needed to say. The question now is, What are you going to do about it? She looked directly at my father. You can either continue being the man who values prestige over people, or you can be the father your daughter deserves. But you can't be both. My father's jaw clenched. That's not fair, Eleanor. You don't understand the pressures. Don't I? Her voice was sharp. I raised a daughter while working 60-hour weeks as a nurse. I faced discrimination, disrespect, and dismissal daily. I know all about pressure. But I never, not once, made Patricia feel like she wasn't enough. My mother flinched at my grandmother's words, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Mother, please. No, Patricia, Eleanor said firmly. You've been quiet through all of this, supporting Richard's vision, maintaining the peace. But at what cost? You've lost your daughter. I haven't lost her, my mother protested weakly. She's right here. Am I? I asked. Because it feels like you lost me 4 years ago when I chose nursing. Maybe even before that. Maybe I was never really here at all. My mother reached for me, her hand trembling. Madison, that's not true. I've always... Always what, Mom? Always loved me? Then why does that love feel so conditional? Why does it feel like I have to earn it by being someone I'm not? She pulled her hand back, clutching it to her chest like I'd burned her. I don't know how to fix this, she whispered. I'm not asking you to fix it, I said, and I realized it was true. I'm not asking for anything anymore. I spent 4 years asking for your approval, your attention, your pride. I'm done asking. My father made a frustrated sound. So what? You're just going to cut us out of your life? Throw away your family over a misunderstanding? A misunderstanding? I stared at him. Dad, you told me nursing was for servants. You said I was wasting my potential. You cut me off financially to try to force me to quit. You turned my graduation party into Olivia's celebration. Those aren't misunderstandings. Those are choices you made. I was trying to motivate you. To do what you wanted, not what was right for me. I shook my head. And the worst part is, you still don't see anything wrong with that. You still think you were justified. Silence fell again. One of my father's partners who'd stayed cleared his throat awkwardly. Richard, Patricia, we should really be going. Let you folks work this out. My father nodded stiffly, and the last of the guests finally left. Now it was just family. My parents, Olivia, my grandmother, Aunt Carol, and me. The room felt enormous and empty, the remnants of the party scattered around us like debris from an explosion. Half-eaten cake, abandoned champagne glasses, the banner that said, "Congratulations, Olivia and Madison," with Olivia's name noticeably larger. Aunt Carol spoke for the first time in a while. Madison, honey, what do you need from them? What would make this better? I thought about her question, really thought about it. I need them to see me, I said finally. Not the daughter they wanted, not the failed lawyer, not the disappointment, just me, Madison, the nurse who graduated top of her class, the person who saves lives, the woman who chose compassion over prestige and doesn't regret it. I looked at my parents. I need you to be proud of who I actually am, not disappointed in who I'm not. My mother was sobbing openly now. I am proud of you, Madison, I am. Then why have you never said it? The question came out quieter than I intended. Why have I never heard you tell anyone about my achievements? Why do you change the subject when people ask about me? Because I didn't know what to say, she admitted, her voice breaking. All my friends' daughters are lawyers or doctors or in finance, and you're a nurse, and I didn't know how to make that sound. Impressive? I finished for her. Important? Worth talking about? She nodded miserably. That says everything, doesn't it? I said softly. You were embarrassed by me. No, she said quickly, but we both knew it was true. Olivia had been quiet, but now she stepped forward. Madison, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I knew things weren't great between you and Mom and Dad, but I didn't know it was this bad. I should have paid attention. I should have been a better sister. I looked at her, this girl who'd had everything handed to her, who'd never had to fight for a scrap of approval. She looked genuinely devastated, and I realized that in her own way, she'd been damaged by this too. She'd been put on a pedestal so high that the only direction she could go was down. Liv, you need to understand something, I said. Mom and Dad's approval? It's not going to last forever. The second you disappoint them, the second you make a choice they don't approve of, you're going to be where I am now. And it's going to hurt even more because you're not used to it. Her face went pale. That's not true. They love me. They love the version of you that does what they want, I corrected. What happens when you decide you don't want to be a lawyer? What happens if you fail a class at Harvard, or decide to switch majors, or fall in love with someone they don't approve of? She looked at our parents uncertainly, as if seeing them for the first time. My father's voice was hard. This is ridiculous. Olivia isn't going to disappoint us because she understands the value of the opportunities we've given her. You hear that, Liv? I said. You're only valuable as long as you meet their expectations. That's not what I said, my father snapped. It's exactly what you said, and it's what you've been saying to me for 4 years. I picked up my purse from where I'd left it on a chair. I'm leaving now. Madison, wait. My mother reached for me again. Please don't leave like this. Stay. Let's talk this through properly. We've been talking, Mom. You just haven't been listening. I looked at my grandmother. Grandma, can I get a ride? I took an Uber here. Of course, sweetheart. As we turned to leave, my father's voice stopped us. If you walk out that door, Madison, don't expect us to chase after you. I turned back to look at him one final time. I've never expected you to chase after me, Dad. That's kind of the whole problem.